Good morning. We're just giving a few more minutes for people to join. We have about 30 people that have registered for the course, and we have only 11 people that have joined us so far. So if you don't mind waiting just a few minutes, I would appreciate it.
I can hear you, Norman.
Great. Okay, good morning and welcome. I think we're going to get going. We have about 14 people that have joined so far. We'll let people join as they come in. Good morning and thanks again for joining us. This is Norman Ruano, and I'm the Deputy Director of Illinois Works here at BCEO. I'm very excited to be here with you today, even though I'm not going to be the facilitator today. My colleague, Jared Walkowitz, will be the facilitator. I just wanted to introduce a little bit Illinois Works and also invite you for the next session that we're going to hold next week. Illinois Works is a state law that was passed in 2019 as a result of the historic investment that is being made at the initiative of Governor Pritzker. The state will be investing $45 billion in infrastructure building projects throughout the state. And the interest is not only to create job opportunities through that investment in the construction industry, but also, and more importantly, to bring equity to the construction industry. For a very long time, the construction industry has not reflected the communities throughout the state. So we have several groups, demographic groups, that are seriously underrepresented in the construction industry, and that includes women, African Americans, Asians, and in some cases Latinos. So Illinois Works was created in its programs were created to focus on bringing equity to the construction industry. Today we're going to be talking about GATA pre-qualification, which is the first step in order to be considered for application for the NOFO that we released last week. You have all received that information. But next week we're putting together a webinar that will talk about the various programs in the Office of Illinois Works at DCEO and how we're planning to really make a difference in the construction industry and bring equity into the construction industry. So I thank you again for joining, and we hope that you have a good time today. And please feel free to ask any questions. In the chat, we'll be answering those questions, and I'm sure Jared, my colleague, will do a great job with that. So thanks again, and we hope to see you next week. Jared.
Thanks, Herman. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I just want to introduce myself first. As Norma said, my name is Jared Walkowitz. I'm the Chief Accountability Officer here at the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. A big part of my job is to make sure that we run our grant programs with the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. So part of that is making sure that you are all pre-qualified so that you can apply to this program, but also I'm going to go through a little bit about the application process so you understand the timeline and what's involved in that, and I'll also go through a little bit about the active grants and what the reporting would look like, but very generally, and I know Norman will go through that in more detail in future webinars. So here's basically the competitive grant life cycle. I broke it down to 3 different categories here. So before you do anything, you must be pre-qualified. So these are the pre-award requirements you can see, and I have a red rectangle around that so you can see that, and also go through the application submission review and what active grants look like. So a lot of it, I'll also send out this presentation so you can also follow along. It has links to where to apply. But as you'll see, it's really just kind of going through a checklist of things that you have to do as an organization to make sure that you're ready to receive grants. So the first thing here,
Jared, if you don't mind, I cannot see the screen.
Oh, you can't. Let me unshare it, and then I'll share it again.
I just want to make sure all the participants can see it. If you could please in the chat indicate if you could see it. You can see the projection on your screen.
You can't see it at all?
Okay.
Try again. One
yes,
second. So you saw it before, right?
Yeah, now I can.
Can you see it now?
Yes, yes. And I'm
perfect.
getting messages in the chat that they can also see it.
Perfect. Sorry about that.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I'll go through some of the pre-award requirements, and as I'm talking, please you can ask questions in the chat, and I can maybe answer them if they're relevant to that what I'm talking about, maybe clearer on it, or I can come back to it at the end of the presentation. So the first thing that you have to do, so if your organization is not pre-qualified, here are the things you have to do. The first thing is a DUNS number. I'll give some context behind this. So this is basically a tracking database of all government contracts, of all government contractors. So all federal governments, all federal grantees do this, but also state of Illinois does it as well. So you basically would go to the site and register your DUNS number. And also keep in mind that this is a free registration process. There are some organizations and consultants out there that charge a fee, and you might get some emails about this. They ask you to give money and you can be registered. This is actually a free process that's not too difficult. So keep in mind that this is a free registration process to get your DUNS number. The next thing is System for Award Management. So this is actually a big one. Illinois has no control over when you get registered. So my suggestion is to do this immediately. So if you even think that you want to apply, please do this right away. So this is really the central registration point for all government contractors and there's also a stop pay list from federal grants. So this is the state of Illinois' way to make sure that the grantees that we have are not delinquent on other federal grants. So this is more of us vetting that the grantees that we provide these funds to don't have issues with other grants. Another thing to make sure you do is try to make the registration public. It's quicker for our pre-qualification. Our system checks on this monthly because there's just a recent update to this website. So if you can make it public, our portal can check on that immediately. We would know that you're pre-qualified earlier. If not, we can still manually update, but we would have to get some screenshots from you. It just might take a little bit longer. And also, our agency has no control over that, so we actually have to go to our Office of Management Budget to get it updated. So try to make this public if you can. And also keep in mind, this is also a free registration process. We've received lots of questions about whether or not there are fees associated with this, and there are not. Also, the Illinois Secretary of State, you must have a certificate of good standing. This is for any businesses that are doing business in Illinois. So you would go to this link and make sure you have a certificate of good standing. And another section is you cannot be on the Illinois stop payment list. So there are many grantees in Illinois who either have not accomplished terms with past grant agreements. Those are actually on stop pay list, so they cannot receive grants. So we verify that your organization is not on this list. If you're afraid that you were on a list for missing a report or something, you have probably received notifications about being placed on this list. So if you're nervous about this in the future, we do communicate before anyone be on the statewide list. And then another portion here, this is for all state of Illinois grants. So if you work with if we lock a grantee from the Department of Commerce, this goes to every other agency. So while you're on this list, you can't apply for grant programs, you can't modify current grant agreements, or even receive grant funds. And then, as I said earlier, you receive notifications, but also in the grantee portal, you can track whether or not you're on the Illinois stop payment list. Another thing you have to do during pre-qualification is do a fiscal and administrative risk questionnaire. There's also something that's called the ICQ, Internal Control Questionnaire, as you see on the bottom. So this is something to be completed annually, and this is our way of assessing your organization's ability to manage grants. And this is more about the financial aspects of your organization. We check for separation of duties, that you have proper systems, staff's aware of how to manage grants. And this is not so answer these questions honestly. This is not something that we judge as we're awarding grants. This is something we use to identify grantees that might need some additional technical assistance in successfully completing their grant program. This also, by answering it honestly, we can help you through the process, because if you go into the grant and things are done wrong or aspects of the grants aren't tracked appropriately, then you might actually be sent to the stop pay list. So we just want to make sure we can help, especially newer grantees, be successful in our grant program. So we do want to build capacity. We want to make sure if this is your first grant, we want you to get many more grants from us. So we want to set you up for success. And as you see, there's another screenshot from the grantee portal. We look at, these are the different sections of the internal control questionnaire. So we'll be setting this out so you can take a look at what that looks like as well.
Jared, if I may, for a minute, just make a comment here. Something that Jared mentioned that is very important is that we are looking to really help organizations build capacity. In the world of pre-apprenticeship programs, which is what our NOCO is about, we understand that there is a number of organizations out there that have experience, but then there are other organizations that have experience in other fields that can really be useful in delivering the services that we need to deliver. So development of capacity is very important for this grant system. So really paying attention here to what's being said is important, because even if you don't, if you're not, you don't feel like you're you have all the requirements in certain areas, be very honest about your responses, because we are going to be providing significant technical assistance as we go through the process.
Thanks, Norman. Yeah, the goal here is not to punish anybody. The goal is really just to make sure everyone's successful. So that's what we use these assessments to really provide the technical assistance needed to help you get through your program. All right, so Grantee Portal, it's grants.illinois.gov/portal. That's how you'd access that. So this is really the steps to register your account. And this next page here, it actually tracks your pre-qualification on the page. So we took a screenshot from the Grantee Portal here so you can see all the different things that I just talked about and make sure that, and this confirms you're not on these different lists. So as I said earlier, you must be registered and pre-qualified to apply for a grant. So when you send in your application, please confirm that this information is complete. When the applications are due, that's when we check for pre-qualification. So if you do send in a week early, you're not pre-qualified at that time, but then on that Friday, so that day that it's due, we see that you are pre-qualified, we will move forward with the merit review. But if you are not pre-qualified at that time, that's automatic denial and won't move forward with the review. So this system's updated nightly. So every night it updates through the system. Everything, it's automatically verified by the system, and then when things change here, you'll receive an automated email from the portal. So that really is the pre-award requirements and pre-qualification. It's really just a checklist of things to go through before you can apply, and it's not much work on your end, but I really hope that you do it early, because any delays or any issues with your organization, we could settle them early. If you try doing that right before the application's due, there is a chance that things won't update in time and you won't be pre-qualified, especially with SAM.gov, because that could take in some cases, it's taken a month to go through registration. So please do that early. Okay. So next here, I'm going to go through the application submission and also the review of your application. So I'll go through that in detail here, just so you know after you submit what we're going to do, so you can feel confident that our review is substantial, which it is. So a few tips I have here. So before you apply, make sure you read the entire notice of funding opportunity. There's a lot of information in there. There's information on procurement requirements. So if you want to procure services from contractors, there are some rules around that. I want to make sure you understand that. So read about that notice of funding opportunity. There are audit requirements, which I'll get into a little more detail on later in this presentation. There's information on the eligible use of funds. We won't just be sending out money and you use it as you see fit. It has to be eligible under the program. And then also understand the goals of the program, because a big part of this is accomplishing these training programs to be good training programs. So we want to make sure that you understand exactly what the goals are and they align with your application. Also, assess your organization's internal tracking system. So with our grant programs, we want to make sure that not only you're tracking financially what you're spending, but also the program goals. So making sure you have systems in place to accurately send that to us and also be able to back that up with documentation. So if you have training courses, like do you have training materials you can show us? If you had some sessions to recruit people, is there a sign-in sheet showing the information that you sent out? Really having systems in place to have that information and being able to collect documentation to show that happened. And then also assess your organization's capacity to manage program and report outcomes. So along with the internal tracking system, have you reported out on outcomes before? Just make sure that you're set up to do that, because we want to make sure that we're tracking the outcomes. And then, and most importantly, just ask questions. If you're reading the NOFO and looking at the program and just something doesn't quite make sense, ask Norman. Reach out to the email and the notice of funding opportunity, because we can answer your questions quickly. And we'll put out a frequently asked questions document on the website to make sure that everyone can get that answer, because there might be something that maybe we thought was clear, but to the public it's not exactly clear. It's up to you to let us know what's not clear. We've done a lot of reviews. It seems to make sense to us, but we want to make sure that it's clear to everybody out there.
Just there's a question here, Jared, in the chat. The question is there a deadline for getting pre-qualified?
Yeah, no, yes. Well, I guess the deadline would be the due date of this application. So you have to be pre-qualified by the time that the application is due.
So that will be October the 4th.
Yes, which means if you started within the next couple of weeks, you would be completely fine.
And when it comes to the questions, Jared, just for clarification to the participants, the Q&A section on the landing page for the NOFO, if you go to the NOFO's landing page where all the information for the NOFO is, there's a Q&A section there, and the Q&A section is active. So if you want to ask a question, you could ask it through the Q&A section. And we also, all questions that are being asked and all the answers that we're providing are also posted there real time. So, you know, maybe there's a question that you want to ask, but someone already asked it, you can go there and get a response if it's already there. Otherwise, through that same page, you could ask the question, and then we'll provide a response as soon as possible.
Okay. All right, so application submission. So I have a link here to where you can find the Notice of Funding Opportunity. All the information on applying is in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. I noticed in my experience in this role is that a lot of questions I received can be found in the Notice of Funding Opportunity as well. So please, just as I said earlier, just please read through that in detail before applying, because there's a lot of information in there. But this link here leads you directly to the application. But also more generally, in case you're interested in other grant programs, there's the catalog of state financial assistance that can be found at grants.illinois.gov. And that has all grant opportunities statewide. So all Illinois grants must be posted on that site. So not only is this posted there, but also other grant opportunities as well. And also other DCO grants can be found on the grant opportunities page on our website as well. So that's illinois.gov/DCEO. So this program is posted there along with other programs as well. So there are many places to find it, but if you want to see all the grant opportunities, that would be in the catalog of state financial assistance, which is grants.illinois.gov. So now I'll go through the grantee selection. So now at this point, you've read the Notice of Funding Opportunity, you've sent in your application on time, if you're pre-qualified, you've submitted all the documents, we would now move on to reviewing the application. So I'll go through a bit on grantee selection, what that looks like. So details of the criteria outlined in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So there's a whole section on criteria, which outlines what the Merit Review Committee will look at when choosing their grantees. So that's found in the NOFO. All applications, they're scored by a Merit Review Committee. So we have at least 3 independent reviewers reviewing applications. We make sure after the review takes place, so I've always asked about the timeline here. It really depends on the volume. So I can't really give an answer. We've had some turn around in a couple of weeks. We've had others take a month and a half. It just really depends on how many applications we get. But I know with this program, we would want to move pretty quickly. So we'll have more information on that timeline as the applications start coming in. We make sure all applicants are informed of the decision. So whether you get it or you get denied, we will let you know. We think that's only fair. All accepted applicants, they must complete a programmatic risk assessment. So it's a little different than the financial risk assessment that I just talked about earlier. This risk assessment talks about your previous experience with running programs. So this is another way for us to identify newer grantees that might need additional technical assistance. This also has nothing to do with whether or not you're selected, so please, when you receive this, answer it as honestly as possible so we can help you along in this process. So if you are accepted as a grantee, you'll receive a notice of state award, which is basically it's an email you get through the portal, which it gives you a preview of what your grant agreement will look like, and you have the opportunity at that point to approve to accept it or deny it. But that's our way of moving forward to the grant agreement. And then if you're denied, you would receive a letter from us through email, and you're also given an opportunity to appeal. So there's details on what the appeal looks like in the letter, in the denial letter. And then if you're selected as a grantee, you're assigned your own grant manager that would work through the grant agreement terms and conditions and get you to executing a grant agreement. And also this person will help you through the life of your grant. So that's the person that you'll be sending reports to. And then also they're the person that handles the cash disbursements, and they'll explain, they'll get really into the weeds of the program with you and how you can access your funds. So that's really, so at this point you're pre-qualified, you've submitted your application, you've been selected, and I'll go through a little bit what the active grant would look like, and then we can open up some questions here. So these are this seems very simple. There's a lot that goes into this, but these are the active grant requirements. So there's a periodic financial report. You might hear it called PFR. This is how you report your financials to the agency, and this is done outside the portal through email. And this is a report that shows what you spent, and we use this to determine the cash disbursements that come to you. And these are typically submitted quarterly, but sometimes monthly. It just depends on the individual circumstances of your organization, your previous experience managing grants. So it's either quarterly or monthly. There's also a periodic performance report, and this is more about the outcomes of your grant, or the outputs, I should say. So how many people have you trained? What goals have you reached through your services? And this is more of your chance qualitatively to report on what you've done with your grant and the impact you've made in the community and through your training programs. And similar to the periodic financial report, this report is also outside the grantee portal, which you would send directly to your grant manager. And then lastly, this is something to all be aware of. There's a consolidated year-end financial statement and audit, and this is done through the grantee portal. So going to the next page here, there's there's different audit types we have here. Really, essentially, if you expend more than $300,000 a year in grants, you would have to do an audit of some sort. If it's $750,000 or more in federal funds, which this is actually state funded, but you would have to do a single audit as a not-for-profit organization. And this is due either 6 or 9 months at the end of your fiscal year, your individual organization's fiscal year. So as I said earlier about reading the notice of funding opportunity, make sure you read through that so you can really understand what the audit requirements are with your grant.
And if I may add here real quick, Jared, one of the key things about reporting for the pre-apprenticeship program is that they will also have to, there is a platform that they will have to use to report real time on a daily basis a variety of activities related to the services in the program that they're running. So besides these quarterly reports or the consolidated year-end financial statement, they will have to do that other reporting to us on a daily basis, and I just want to make sure they were aware of that.
Yeah, thanks, Norman. Yeah, as I said earlier, this is a framework of what it would look like, but there are program-specific requirements that will be communicated to you. And then a few other important tips here with the portal. Make sure your contact list is accurate. We run into situations, as I said earlier, you receive notification of certain changes in the portal. If that person, that main contact, has left your organization, that might go to an email, that person's email that you don't have access to anymore. So make sure your contact list is up to date, and then also ensure your fiscal year end date is accurate, because what I just said with the audits, they're due 6 or 9 months at the end of your fiscal year. So make sure that's accurate when you're going through when you're in the portal as well.
We have another question here, Jared. It says, can a nonprofit partner with a for-profit? Can a nonprofit partner with a company in Canada or Israel?
I believe we'd have to talk about that more specifically, but I don't see it depends on the situation, because you can contract with certain organizations as long as you follow the proper procurement requirements. I don't see an issue with that. It also depends on the scope of their work, because if they become a sub-grantee, which is different than a contractor, there's some requirements that this partner would have to do as well. So Cindy, we can talk about that in a little more detail, because sometimes it just really depends, and we can take you through what that would look like to partner with an organization. But I know with other programs, we've partnered with organizations outside the country. So you just really, I guess it's a long way of saying it depends. So we just talk about your specific situation. Yeah, so this is the entire process. So it was real high level here. So just to kind of review again here, pre-award requirements essentially is a checklist of tasks that you have to do and as long as you pass through everything, there's no issues with past grants, there's no funds owed to the state, like back taxes or anything, you're not paying them back. As long as there's no issues like that, you would pass through the pre-award requirements. Application submission, just make sure you read the notice of funding opportunity in detail. You make sure in what you submit that it assesses everything that we're looking for in the notice of funding opportunity. It's reviewed by a panel of 3 people. We'll let you know if you got the grant or denied. You're also given the opportunity to appeal if you did not get the grant. And then with the active grants, there's reporting requirements that include financial reports, programmatic reports. There's also one specifically that the program will ask for. And then there's also audit requirements. And in terms of grant disbursements, we get this question a lot. Typically, these are reimbursement grants, but we do give a 2-month working capital advance to get you started on your grant program as well. So that's the grant process here. And then I'll just move on to any questions. You can put them in the chat, and I'll answer them.
Any other questions?
Rachel, I see your question about providing you with the GATA website, and that's grants.illinois.gov. And I'll share this presentation with Norman so you can send it out to everybody. So you have the links to all those websites as well.
So right after we finish the presentation, we're going to include the recording and the slides as part of the landing page for the NOFO. When you go down at the bottom of the page, you will see this webinar listed there. So right there in that section, you will be able to download the recording and also the PowerPoint presentation. I don't see any other questions, Jared.
It seems like that's it.
Okay, great.
thanks everybody for listening to our presentation. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll try to answer your questions immediately.
Yes, thank you very much for joining. And again, we invite you to the next session we're going to be holding next Thursday from 10 to noon on the introduction to Illinois Works and its programs. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.